It started like every other morning. Birds chirping too enthusiastically, your alarm blaring with the emotional sensitivity of a jackhammer, and your brain demanding caffeine before any thought can be trusted. You crawl out of bed. Maybe you mumble something poetic like, "I hate everything." You shuffle to the window, expecting the usual glow. But instead, there's nothing. Not cloudy, not foggy, just pitch black. The kind of black that makes you feel like the universe closed its eyes. And somewhere, someone is already yelling, "Did someone forget to pay the sun bill?" You laugh nervously, but deep down your intestines are filing for panic. Welcome to the moment the sun vanished. Gone. Without a bang, flare, warning, or Facebook goodbye post. No sunrise, no golden beam slipping through your curtains. Just pure unfiltered darkness, and not the poetic introspective kind. No, this is we're totally screwed darkness. Suddenly, car alarms are blaring. Your neighbor is screaming about the government. A guy down the street is trying to barbecue by flashlight. And the internet? Oh, it's melting. Twitter's trending tags include hashtag where is the sun, hashtag did aliens steal it, and hashtag dark mode IRL. You guessed it. It's What If Horizons time. Welcome to the show where we ask the questions that make physicists sweat, philosophers weep, and conspiracy theorists feel validated. I'm your host, that voice in your head that's slightly too excited about theoretical doom. And today's question is one for the ages. What if the sun disappeared? Not dimmed, not turned off, not replaced by a giant light bulb. I mean vanished. 1 second it's there, fusing hydrogen like it's on commission. The next, nada. Like a deadbeat dad who went to get milk 4.6 billion years in and just noped out of existence. Let's lay out the basics. The sun is 1.4 million kilometers wide. It's basically a continuous thermonuclear explosion that keeps our planet alive, toasty, and surprisingly full of seasonal allergies. It powers weather, photosynthesis, solar panels, and everyone's ability to complain about summer heat. Without it, we're not just turning off the light. We're pulling the plug on the entire biosphere. But here's the fun part. If the sun disappeared right now, we wouldn't even know it for 8 minutes and 20 seconds. That's how long sunlight takes to travel 150 million kilometers to reach us. So for 8 blissfully ignorant minutes, we keep sipping our coffee, scrolling memes, and wondering why our cat is staring at the ceiling with apocalyptic terror. And then darkness. Real darkness. The kind you don't adjust to. Stars would pop into view. No twilight, no sunset. Just one cosmic what the hell moment. People would think it's an eclipse, then maybe a prank, then maybe a new Netflix ARG. But when hours pass and the light doesn't return, even the most committed flat earthers start looking nervous. Of course, your first thought is probably, how cold is it gonna get? Answer, very. The sun's energy drives everything from your sweaty armpits to the Gulf Stream. Without it, Earth begins cooling immediately. But it's not instant death. Thanks to thermal inertia, yes, science still works, Earth takes a while to chill. On day 1, it drops maybe 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Still tolerable. Break out the sweaters and optimism. Within a week, average global temperatures drop below freezing. Within a month, most surface water freezes. Within a year, it's minus 73 Celsius globally. That's colder than your ex's voicemail. Within that year, our atmosphere starts condensing too. Oxygen and nitrogen begin snowing down. A poetic end. Death by atmospheric snowfall. Meanwhile, plants die within days. No light, no photosynthesis. Crops fail. Forests rot. The food chain implodes faster than a tech startup during an economic downturn. Herbivores starve. Carnivores follow. Jeff can't grill steaks anymore. It's tragic. Humans, though? Oh, we're stubborn. We retreat underground, into bunkers, subways, parking garages, anywhere that still has heat and Wi-Fi. We burn everything that burns. Build reactors, dig in the geothermal veins. Eat canned beans with gourmet enthusiasm. And as the Earth freezes into a glorified meatball, we cling to survival. Some people say, could we just light up Earth with artificial suns? Sure. And while we're at it, let's put a wind farm on Jupiter and a jacuzzi on Pluto. We can dream. Others ask, couldn't we orbit another star eventually? That's adorable. But Earth's orbit was tied to the sun's gravity. With that gone, we're not orbiting anything. We're flying through space at 30 kilometers per second like a runaway bowling ball in a galactic void. No brakes, no GPS, no idea where we're headed. Space doesn't care. It just watches silently as our planet drifts, frozen and confused like a retiree who wandered out of Florida and never came back. And what about the moon? Still there, still orbiting us. But now it's just us and our emotionally distant rock companion, alone in the void. Earth and moon, buddies in exile. So what happens next? That's where this show takes off. Over the next 9 parts, we'll explore the fallout, the freezing oceans, the death of ecosystems, the desperate last acts of human innovation, the potential for life to crawl onward like a cockroach with a PhD in nuclear engineering. But for now, take a moment. Look up, pretend the sun is still there, and whisper, please don't leave us into the abyss, because if it ever does, well, welcome to darkness. Welcome back to the worst camping trip in human history. The sun's gone, Earth is plunging into a cosmic freezer, and we're all collectively pretending we know how to handle it. The first few hours after the light vanishes are surprisingly calm. The power's still on. The internet is still working. Some optimistic person suggests this is a temporary phenomenon. Maybe the sun just needs a break, they say, clutching a chai latte with trembling hands. But science doesn't take coffee breaks. Within hours, weather systems begin collapsing. With no solar energy to drive them, wind patterns slow. Storms die in mid-motion. Jet streams stall. Clouds stop forming. Everything atmospheric turns sluggish. It's like the planet itself forgot how to breathe. By the end of day 1, average temperatures have already dropped several degrees. Cities begin rationing electricity. Power companies realize their solar farms are now decorative art installations. And people start to freak out. Grocery stores are overrun. Bottled water is sold out. The battery section looks like it hosted a raccoon riot. Some folks hoard candles, others hoard canned ravioli. One guy in Nebraska buys 35 snow shovels. No one knows why. Meanwhile, social media is ablaze with panic, memes, and conspiracy theories. One camp blames aliens, another blames CERN. A third insists the sun is actually still there, but invisible because of a secret government cloaking project involving lizard people. It's chaos with hashtags. Scientists go on TV to explain that, no, this isn't a prank. The sun isn't hiding. It's not on vacation. It's simply gone. Space telescopes confirm it. One moment it was radiating 3.8x10. So watts of glorious energy. The next? Blackness. As if someone reached into the sky and deleted it from the simulation. Governments declare emergencies. Martial laws declared in place that barely had laws to begin with. Mass evacuations to warmer regions are attempted, but quickly fail when it becomes clear that there are no warmer regions anymore. The entire globe is cooling. Fast. By day 3, temperatures dip below freezing across most of the planet. Pipes burst. Power grids falter. Transportation grinds to a halt as fuel thickens and engines freeze. Planes are grounded indefinitely. Trains stop running. The only vehicles that still function reliably are snowmobiles, military trucks, and the occasional stubborn bicycle ridden by someone with frost on their eyebrows and an unhealthy amount of optimism. People start moving underground. Subways become shelters. Basements become bunkers. Abandoned malls are converted into survival colonies lit by generators and desperate hope. Schools are repurposed into supply depots. The phrase thermal socks becomes a global obsession. By day 5, most vegetation is dead. Photosynthesis stopped almost immediately, and without sunlight, even the hardiest plants succumb. Trees drop their leaves. Grass turns gray. Gardens are graveyards. The food chain begins to unravel. Insects die en masse. Birds vanish. Farm animals begin to starve. Entire ecosystems grind to a halt. The world is quieter now. No chirping, no buzzing. Just a distant hum of generators and the occasional howl of someone who realized their crypto wallet is useless in the dark. On day 6, panic begins to mature into something darker. Desperation. Looting becomes commonplace, not for flat screens, those days are over, but for blankets, batteries, fuel, and food. Cities burn not because of riots, but because people are trying to stay warm. Fires are lit in parking lots, in shopping carts, in bathtubs. Any enclosed space becomes a heat trap. Some people flee the cities altogether, hoping rural areas offer more safety. They discover instead that nature doesn't care about your zip code. It's cold everywhere. Even tropical regions are now chilly. By day 7, it's official. Earth has become a planet in crisis. Not in the poetic climate change, but humans are annoyingly resilient. Some start adapting. Engineers build makeshift geothermal heaters. Scientists huddle in labs trying to invent sun substitutes. Communities form around large underground heat sources, old mines, volcanic vents, abandoned research stations. The rich retreat into underground bunkers stocked with luxury canned goods and ironic art. The poor? They build shanty towns and subway tunnels. Heat becomes currency. Knowledge becomes power. And still, nobody truly understands what happened. Why did the sun disappear? Where did it go? Could it come back? Is someone or something responsible? Theologians declare divine punishment. Cults form, promising to pray the light back. Others suggest building giant orbital mirrors to redirect light from other stars. These people are often ignored unless they have working batteries. As the week ends, the darkness outside begins to feel normal. People adjust to artificial cycles of light inside their bunkers. A new kind of day-night rhythm emerges, governed by power schedules and LED strips. Children born during this time never know sunlight. Their world is defined by dim glow, thick jackets, and stories about the warmth that used to exist. Their lullabies are sung beside fusion heaters. Their playgrounds are storage rooms. The sky, for them, is not something to gaze at, it's something to fear. Because above, beyond the clouds, is nothing, just space. Cold, dark, uncaring. And out there, our planet is now adrift. No longer orbiting anything. No longer part of a system. Earth is alone, spinning, floating, falling sideways at 30 kilometers per second into an ocean of stars that don't care. And in that lonely silence, humanity asked itself the question we never thought we'd need to answer. How do you survive on a planet that lost its sun? So here we are, roughly 2 weeks after the sun ghosted us harder than your ex after that Let's Talk text, and Earth has completed its transformation from a vibrant solar-powered paradise into a deep space meat locker. Let's begin with the obvious. Time is broken. Without the sun rising and setting, circadian rhythms, the internal clocks that tell your body when to sleep, eat, and argue with strangers online, completely fall apart. People no longer agree on what constitutes day or night. Midnight becomes whenever you feel the worst, and morning is just the hour you crawl out of your blanket cocoon to check if the world still exists. Sleep schedules are wrecked. Productivity? A joke. Society collectively slides into what scientists call chronological spaghetti, where nobody knows what day it is and everyone's cranky about it. Clocks still tick, sure, but without sunlight to anchor the passage of time, it all feels pointless. One guy in Iceland declares every third hour to be tequila o'clock. And weirdly, it catches on. As the psychological toll sets in, mental health declines faster than crypto in a market correction. Seasonal depression becomes permanent depression. Vitamin D deficiency skyrockets. The sale of sad lamps surges until power grids crash and they become expensive paperweights. Therapists try their best, but it's hard to treat existential despair with Wi-Fi-based appointments and a frozen internet modem. Meanwhile, Earth's environment is going through a hardcore transformation montage. Remember those cute wildlife documentaries? Yeah, those are now horror films. Forests are dying. Oceans are crusting over with thick sheets of ice. Rainforests become snow forests. Polar bears look confused. Penguins, ironically, are thriving, now ruling large swaths of the planet with an icy flipper. Somewhere in what used to be Canada, raccoons have formed tribal alliances. Welcome to Fauna 2.0. More desperate, more fluffy, more aggressive. And then there's the oceans. Without the sun to warm them, surface waters begin to freeze solid. The process starts at the poles as expected, but creeps toward the equator with alarming speed. Shipping routes vanish. Coastal cities become useless. People once worried about rising sea levels. Now they just want to chip through enough ice to reach a sardine can they dropped last week. Fish die off in massive numbers. Marine ecosystems collapse. Somewhere, a whale tries to sing a mournful song, but it echoes off a wall of ice and comes back sounding like a death metal album. Economically, things have gone from slightly inconvenient to Mad Max on ice. Stock markets? Shut down. No one's buying. No one's selling. No one cares. Currency becomes firewood. Bartering returns with a vengeance. You want 2 cans of beans? That would cost you 1 half-charged power bank and 3 AA batteries. Bitcoin is now considered a bedtime story for children. And then, kids, there was once a time when we used imaginary coins to buy real pizzas. Social structures start reorganizing. Nations dissolve as communication collapses and the internet becomes a flickering memory. In its place, micro-societies rise, groups of people bound not by ideology or culture, but by proximity to heat. Some settle near geothermal vents. Others convert nuclear power plants into makeshift cities. A few particularly brave souls attempt to reignite old coal plants, breathing new life into the dirtiest tech imaginable in order to not freeze to death. It's environmental irony at its finest, saving humanity by undoing every single climate treaty ever signed. Religion doesn't disappear, it mutates. New cults emerge worshiping heat, light, and fire. In an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese, a group forms the first church of the sacred generator. Every evening they chant to the rhythm of the old animatronic band, praying for warmth while sacrificing old iPhones to the holy flame. Across the planet, bonfires become altars, candles become relics, and the phrase hot shower becomes more myth than memory. Education takes a weird turn too. With no organized schools, knowledge is passed down orally, often incorrectly. Future generations may sincerely believe the sun was taken by sky pirates, or that daylight was once a luxury only billionaires could afford. History becomes folklore, and physics becomes witchcraft. Someone somewhere writes a manifesto called photosynthesis and other lies, and it becomes disturbingly popular. Satellites, those that haven't frozen solid or deorbited, scan the void for any trace of the missing star. Is there a giant Dyson vacuum out there sucking up suns for an intergalactic energy grid? Do we offend an alien deity with our TikToks? Or is this all the result of a catastrophic cosmic bug, an astronomical control plus Z that nobody asked for? Space agencies scramble to develop emergency plans. Some propose sending massive spacecraft to nearby stars. Others suggest building orbiting mirrors or artificial suns powered by nuclear fusion. These projects are laughably underfunded, hastily assembled, and mostly hypothetical. But even a desperate hope is better than none. Underground, civilization continues to mutate. Cities shrink into heating zones. Above ground, temperatures have plummeted to minus 80 degrees Celsius and falling. No unprotected life survives. You go outside, you die. No dramatic music, no last words, just instant icicle. Entire countries are now uninhabitable. Greenland finally lives up to its name, but only in the sense that it's now one solid sheet of green ice. Humanity's survival depends entirely on one question: how long can we keep the heat going? Fossil fuels are finite. Geothermal sources are limited. Nuclear power plants require maintenance. Solar energy is now a cosmic joke. And fusion? Still, only 20 years away, like it has been since the 1950s. But hope, like cockroaches in convenience store sandwiches, refuses to die. And so in bunkers lit by battery-powered lamps and heated by desperate ingenuity, people begin to adapt. Maybe we won't find the sun. Maybe it's gone for good. But humans are ridiculous, stubborn creatures. We learned to survive saber-toothed tigers, world wars, and dial-up internet. If anyone can outlast the freezer apocalypse, it's us. Or at least the penguins. Probably the penguins. Welcome to month 2 of the most extended blackout in cosmic history. Earth is colder than your ex's heart and darker than your student loan debt. Humanity, now permanently wrapped in 5 layers of thermal underwear and existential dread, is entering its new normal, one where thermostats are ceremonial objects and refrigerators are used to keep things warm. Above ground, the landscape resembles an abandoned sci-fi movie set with none of the budget left for CGI. Cities are ghost towns frozen mid-traffic jam, snow layering over the remnants of a world that used to run on sunlight and the misguided optimism of tech startups. Highways are coated in ice. Cars left like forgotten toys by giants who didn't pay their heating bill. Skyscrapers protrude from the frost like the skeletal fingers of a civilization that built too high, too fast, and too arrogantly. Satellites? Most are now spinning blind. Their solar panels about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Communication is fragmentary. The internet exists only in pockets. Tiny server farms run on backup generators maintained by dedicated groups of nerds who now wield the power of gods. Social media has devolved into emergency bulletin boards, haiku competitions, and arguments over whether the sun actually ever existed or was just an elaborate government hoax. Somewhere, a subreddit called r Bring Back the Sun gains millions of followers, all angrily debating fusion theory while wrapped in blankets. Underground, however, the human spirit festers beautifully. Innovation is booming like mold in a bunker pantry. In a geothermal cavern in Iceland, a team of engineers builds the world's first artificial day room, complete with UV lights, a Spotify playlist called Summer Vibes, and a cardboard cutout of the sun with googly eyes to keep morale up. In Mongolia, herders convert yurts into radiant heat hubs using buried hot springs and a complex system of goat-powered treadmills. In what used to be Silicon Valley, former tech bros repurpose espresso machines into water filtration units and attempt to pivot their failed crypto startups into sustainable land and cooperatives. They still lose money. But innovation aside, something else is happening, something less comforting. The absence of the sun doesn't just destroy ecosystems. It messes with the mind. Our biology is built around light. No sunlight means no melatonin cycle, no serotonin boost, and certainly no golden hour selfies. People are becoming strange. Cabin fever is evolving into cabin lunacy. In one underground colony, a group begins painting everything yellow and insists they can feel the sun's energy through interpretive dance. Another faction refuses all artificial light and lives entirely by the flicker of fire, claiming modern bulbs are false prophets. A new cult forms called the Returners, who believe that if they build a big enough mirror on the moon, the sun will come back out of sheer vanity. They are currently chiseling away in the lunar direction using spoons and hope. And let's talk about food. Agriculture, obviously, is dead on arrival. Photosynthesis? Gone. Soil? Frozen. Crops? Ghosted harder than your gym motivation. Humanity quickly turns to hydroponics and lab-grown meat. Those with a stash of beans or ramen noodles are suddenly richer than oil barons. A single Twinkie is traded for a winter coat. Children born during this time are told legends of a mythical place called the produce aisle, where fruits came in colors and vegetables didn't come in cans. Nutrition suffers. People get creative. In one bunker, a chef figures out how to make rat loaf gourmet using spices, courage, and denial. Somewhere else, a group discovers their algae tank has mutated into something sentient and possibly judgmental, but it still makes decent soup. And yet, amid the madness, there's something oddly beautiful about human tenacity. With no light, people start creating their own beauty. Murals appear in bunkers, painted in phosphorescent ink. Musicians compose symphonies inspired by the sound of water dripping off ice. Storytellers become vital again, keeping myths, hope, and sanity alive with tales of warmth, sunlight, and the beach vacations no one will ever take again. Children born in this era never cry about being grounded. They are literally underground from birth. Their games involve navigating tunnels, fixing heaters, and telling ghost stories about the surface. Their heroes aren't astronauts or athletes. They're mechanics, welders, and anyone who can keep the power running for another day. They grow up with callous hands and hopeful hearts, dreaming not of Disneyland, but of a day when they might see the stars without shivering. Meanwhile, a new kind of economy develops, the heat economy. Everything revolves around thermal exchange. If you can generate warmth, you're royalty. People trade microwaves for generators, socks for space heaters. A black market emerges for heating coils and functioning toasters. Someone manages to create a geothermal-powered espresso machine and becomes the king of their bunker. Artisanal candle makers are the new influencers. Currency? Completely obsolete. Now it's all about warmth units. 1 unit equals 5 minutes of electric blanket time. If you got 2 units and a working kettle, you're basically a billionaire. Governments, or what's left of them, try to keep control. Emergency federations are formed, mostly by people yelling at each other through crackly radio static. Some cities unite under heat councils, which sound like something from a bad YA dystopia, but are surprisingly effective. They ration power, enforce rotation schedules, and allocate resources based on community contribution, meaning the guy who can fix a generator is now way more popular than your average influencer with a ring light. By now, Earth's atmosphere is mostly inert. Weather patterns no longer exist. Precipitation is rare. The sky has become a black, star-speckled ceiling of silence. When people do venture to the surface, wrapped in 7 layers of insulation and regret, they stare up at the vastness and wonder what's out there. Who's responsible? Where'd the sun go? And will it ever come back? The answer, for now, remains frozen in the vacuum above. But down here, buried beneath kilometers of ice and desperation, humanity endures. Not because we're the smartest species or the strongest, but because we're the most stubborn. If the sun won't shine, we'll light candles. If nature fails, we'll hack together something weird and barely functional. And if we have to rebuild society, one being at a time, by all that is holy, we will. You're just joining us. Earth has been stuck in a universal game of lights out for several months now. And let me tell you, the planet is pulling off a surprisingly solid impression of an abandoned freezer in a rental apartment. The sun is still missing, presumably off having a midlife crisis, and humanity, being the tenacious, over-caffeinated species it is now trying to rebuild civilization from the icy rubble while dressed like Michelin men and fueled by soup made from things we used to consider compost. By now, most surface dwellers have moved entirely underground, creating a labyrinthine network of human mole tunnels more complex than your last 5 breakups combined. Subways, sewers, abandoned mines, parking garages, anything even vaguely cavernous has been claimed and retrofitted with LED lights, wind turbines, and a desperate sense of community. Life without the sun has not only restructured our calendars, it has restructured our species. First, let's talk time. You see, without sunlight, the entire idea of a 24-hour day becomes about as useful as an inflatable dartboard. Different underground settlements adopt their own cycles based on power availability, artificial lighting schedules, or just vibes. Some communities run on 6-hour shifts and call it a court cycle. Others divide their day into hot lamp time and blanket hour. Meanwhile, a group of former HR managers in what used to be Ottawa insist on sticking to standard work weeks and promptly gets ignored by everyone except their cats. And then there's the food situation. Traditional agriculture is now as extinct as blockbuster video. In its place, humanity has invented a form of desperate salad sorcery. Hydroponic labs flourish in shipping containers. Algae farms boom. Mushrooms become the new kale. There's even a resurgence in insect protein, although convincing people to eat cricket tacos in a bunker is a marketing challenge nobody asked for. Of course, the elite aren't suffering quite as much. In luxurious underground sanctuaries known as deep domes, the world's richest bunker babies sip heated Chardonnay and nibble on genetically engineered strawberries grown under $10 million UV lamps. The rest of the world, meanwhile, is trying to decide if it's okay to put ketchup on canned tuna again. Social structures have shifted too. This new age of darkness, knowledge is literal power. The guy who knows how to build a methane digester from scrap parts is more respected than any celebrity. Doctors, engineers, electricians, and that one grandma who remembers how to ferment cabbage are all now high-value citizens. Influencers? Not so much. Nobody cares about your makeup tutorial when your eyeliner freezes before application. There are new professions as well. Heat brokers trade fuel on the underground black market. Lightsmiths specialize in rigging solar lamps from scavenged tech. What barons hoard battery packs and control entire districts through flashlight monopolies. Someone in former Detroit has founded the Church of Radiance, which worships a still-functioning tanning bed and promises spiritual warmth to those who bring AA batteries and good vibes. As culture evolves, so does language. Old sayings fall out of use. Nobody tells you to look on the bright side anymore. New phrases emerge. Glow up now literally means replacing your busted LED bulbs. Feeling frosty is a death threat. Hot take is reserved for opinions you'll near heat sources. And of course, sun-kissed becomes the highest form of mythical compliment, only used in fairy tales and fever dreams. Communication is tricky. With satellites offline and the internet hanging by threads of copper wire and grit, messages are sent through radio relays, encoded light pulses, and brave couriers who ride heated scooters through tunnel highways. Entire glow zones form, safe areas lit and warmed by fusion cores, geothermal vents, or a bunch of really motivated people with stationary bikes. These zones are the hubs of trade, gossip, and weirdly competitive board game leagues. And yes, humans being humans, we still find time to date. Romantic relationships blossom in the dim glow of bioluminescent lichen. There's an underground dating app called Torture, where your profile includes your body temperature and battery reserve. The hottest pickup line of the new age? My pod has insulation and a backup generator. Saucy. Political systems, too, are born anew. Some settlements are democracies run by public votes transmitted via light flashes. Others are technocracies ruled by the person who knows how to fix the last remaining heater. A few descend into theocracy, worshipping any glowing object as divine. One infamous outpost in what used to be Kansas is ruled by a sentient vending machine known only as Code 7B, which dispenses warm Mountain Dew and commands a loyal following. And amidst all this underground rebirth, there's one truth that continues to haunt every flickering lamp and shaky radio signal. The sun didn't just vanish. It disappeared without explanation. With all our science, satellites, and astrophysicists huddled in Antarctica, we still have no clue why our parent star blinked out like a faulty ceiling light. Some believe it's a natural cosmic event, something to do with quantum instability or rogue black holes. Others claim it's the work of alien civilizations, using some kind of stellar vacuum cleaner. A third theory suggests this is the natural conclusion of a simulation, and someone just forgot to pay the cosmic energy bill. Regardless of the cause, the effect is total. The solar system is now a ghost town.
Mars?
Iced over. Jupiter's moons, frozen sculptures, solar panels on space probes, useless metal wings. Even Voyager, drifting silently beyond the heliopause, stopped transmitting months ago. Earth is now a rogue planet, flung through space without an anchor, drifting toward who knows where like a cosmic Uber with no destination set. And yet, we endure. Because that's what we do. We complain, we improvise, we create memes about the darkness, and we keep building. We find meaning in heat, connection in scarcity, and occasionally a really good pot of mushroom stew. The age of sunlight is over. The age of survival has begun. Several years into humanity's involuntary solar sabbatical, something curious begins to happen. Not just the emergence of Civilization 2.0, not the mushroom boom, not even the glow-stick fashion revival sweeping through underground night markets. No, we're talking about something juicier. Something humanity excels at even more than survival. Conspiracy theories. Because if there's one universal truth, it's that when faced with inexplicable catastrophe, humans immediately stop trusting everything and start asking questions no one has answers to. Who stole the sun? Why did it vanish? Who had the most to gain from such a cosmic prank? And most importantly, could we sue them? It starts small. A flickering radio broadcast intercepted between bunker clusters claims to have proof that the sun was abducted by interdimensional beings made of pure shadow. This theory gains a modest following, mostly among people who already believed their coffee machines were spying on them. But soon, the theories multiply like lab-grown crickets. One major theory says this is all part of a secret government experiment gone wrong. Something about harnessing stellar energy to power a Sun 2.0 that backfired so hard it uninstalled the original. Naturally, the project was run by a shadowy global cabal called the Thermos Council, who now live on a spaceship called the Warm Yacht. No evidence, plenty of followers. Another theory claims this is a result of Earth being moved out of orbit. That's right, moved. By what? Giant alien tow trucks, obviously. According to this idea, we're now drifting through space in a galactic witness protection program because the Milky Way's sun was being targeted by space mobsters. Still more groups argue that the sun hasn't disappeared at all. It's still there, they say, but Earth has been encased in a Dyson sphere by a Type 3 civilization that's using us as a power source, or a terrarium, or a very confused science fair project. Of course, none of this has any basis in evidence, but that's not the point. The point is belief. People want answers, and in the absence of hard data, the human brain makes its own spaghetti. Religion gets a reboot too. Dozens of new sects form. The Church of the Eternal Flame rises in former Brazil, promising that the sun will return once humanity has repented for its sins, specifically the sin of inventing NFTs and microwave fish. In Iceland, the Order of the Radiant Orb believes the sun was sent away to test us, like some kind of cosmic internship. Their holy symbol is a glowing light bulb inside a snow globe. They wear sunglasses at all times. Then there's the cult of the singularity spark, whose members believe the sun has uploaded itself into the quantum consciousness and will return only when humans achieve complete Wi-Fi enlightenment. They meditate by staring into lava lamps and chanting the Wi-Fi password. Unsurprisingly, governments struggle to contain the madness. Underground leaders set up misinformation task forces, but it's difficult to regulate content when half your communications rely on Morse code and loud yelling. Conspiracy podcasts rise in popularity, with titles like Hot Takes from the Cold Void, Sun Truth Underground, and Thermodynamic Lies They Don't Want You to Know. These hosts broadcast from tunnels, bathtubs, and abandoned Cold War bunkers, and every single one of them is convinced they alone know what happened. Some groups take matters into their own hands. The Sun Seekers, a network of rogue scientists, philosophers, and heavily bearded enthusiasts, launched an ambitious project to rebuild a long-range deep space telescope using spare parts, frozen chewing gum, and something called a quantum periscope. Their goal: locate the sun, or at least find out if someone left it in the glove box of the cosmos. Meanwhile, hacker collectives begin probing what's left of the global satellite grid, trying to piece together the last known solar telemetry before the blackout. They find nothing. Just static. No explosion. No solar flare. Just a moment of brightness, then total void. This only deepens the mystery, because nature abhors a vacuum, and humans abhor an unexplained vacuum. Soon, artists join the fray. Plays are written about the sun's betrayal. Songs mourn its abandonment. Sculptures are crafted from melted streetlights and painted gold, representing the lost flame. There's a popular post-apocalyptic folk band called Where to Glow, whose hit single, Don't Let the Light Die on Me, tops the geothermal charts for 3 years straight. Even kids aren't spared. New bedtime stories evolve, tales of the mythical sun that once bathed the world in warmth, fought off the night wolves, and danced with the moon. Toys shaped like miniature suns become relics of nostalgia and reverence. And yet, underneath all the absurdity and speculation, there's a common thread, a hope that maybe, just maybe, understanding the disappearance might bring about a return, a rescue, a reversal, a big cosmic oops followed by a solar reboot. But the truth remains frustratingly out of reach. All we know is this: one moment, humanity had a star. The next, we had an existential crisis wrapped in tinfoil and held together with duct tape. And so humanity continues in the dark, not just physically, but intellectually. The age of sunlight brought certainty, clarity, vitamin D. The age of darkness brings questions, doubt, and vitamin supplements that taste like sadness. Yet somehow the search continues. Every flicker of static in the radio, every strange shadow cast in the tunnel, every dream of warmth. We chase the sun not just because we want the heat back, but because without it, we're not sure who we are anymore. At a certain point, humanity collectively sighed into its frost-covered mittens and said, all right, if the universe won't give us the sun back, we'll build our own. Thus began the age of Megasun, the single most audacious period in human history, second only to the time we tried to put cheese in every possible form of bread and called it innovation. The idea first emerged in what was left of the French Alps, inside a ski lodge turned underground think tank called Le Bureau du Soleil. Here, a group of physicists, engineers, philosophers, and one suspiciously tan guy named Claude brainstormed how to manufacture sunlight, not metaphorically, literally, using machines. Big ones. Machines so large they would make Elon Musk look like he was playing with Lego. The proposal? Build an artificial sun. A megasun. Not some dinky little LED or heat lamp, but a nuclear fusion-powered orb suspended in the upper atmosphere or possibly space, capable of mimicking the intensity, radiation, and glow of the original big boss in the sky. Naturally, people laughed at first. They called it impossible, suicidal, expensive, ludicrous. Why not just knit sweaters for the earth? Critics cheered. But humans, particularly cold ones, are deeply stubborn creatures, and also desperate. Within weeks, the idea went viral across the global bunker network. It got a name, Project Helios 2.0. It got slogans like "Make it hot again" and "You can't stop the glow." Most importantly, it got funding. Crypto was out. Candlecoin was in. And every surviving nation, city-state, and vaguely organized settlement threw their resources into the fiery dream. The first problem: materials. You don't just build a star using duct tape and motivational posters. You need heavy-duty superconductors, tritium, and enough engineering expertise to make a particle accelerator cry. So humanity started salvaging. Old nuclear plants were stripped down, submarines were gutted. Even the ruins of the Large Hadron Collider were reactivated, mostly because it had a big ring and nobody was entirely sure what else to do with it. Construction was global. From the icy plains of Kazakhstan to the underwater caverns of former Los Angeles, enormous fusion chambers were assembled. It took years, hundreds of failed prototypes, and at least one incident involving a hamster-powered heat turbine. Don't ask, but eventually progress was made. The first success came from Antarctica, where an enormous fusion bulb nicknamed Little Blazer achieved sustainable reaction for a full 8 minutes. It melted 2 research stations, fried a flock of penguins, and got nominated for Most Useless but Inspirational Glow Object of the Year. Still, it was hope. Encouraged, humanity pushed harder. Engineers learned to tether fusion reactors to high-altitude drones powered by geothermal currents. Cities began using concentrated plasma arrays to mimic sunrise in controlled zones. Small domed settlements called glow gardens popped up, each lit by its own homemade daylight generator. People came to worship these zones. They held festivals. They played sports again. They wore shorts for the first time in decades. Some got sunburns and cried tears of joy. It wasn't quite the same as the real sun, but it was close enough to remember what being alive felt like. Then came the big breakthrough. A space-based fusion platform codenamed Uplight was launched from a massive magnetic railgun in the Andes. Shaped like a giant golden disco ball with a grudge, it housed a fusion core the size of a football field. Its mission: shine artificial sunlight over one quadrant of Earth at a time in time sweeps. When it activated, there was silence. Not just awe, but genuine silence. People stopped moving. Dogs stopped barking. Even conspiracy theorists momentarily paused their rants, because for the first time in over a decade, the sky had light. It wasn't the same, colder, sharper, oddly metallic, but it cast shadows. It lit valleys. It brought color back to skin. Photosynthesis restarted in controlled zones. And for the first time in forever, someone grew a potato that didn't look like a haunted sock. Naturally, not everyone was on board. Purists argued that artificial light was a blasphemy, that we were playing God with glow sticks. Others feared the megasun would explode, or worse, gain sentience and demand taxes. A small rebel group known as the Shadow Keepers tried to sabotage the APOL light, claiming the darkness was sacred. They were arrested when they attempted to infiltrate the launch site disguised as snowmen. Regardless, the megasun changed everything. Energy abundance returned. Crops could grow again, albeit in carefully lit greenhouses. Mental health improved. People stopped naming their children after depression symptoms. And while APOL light only covered parts of the Earth at a time, its light brought a renewed sense of global unity. Countries coordinated time slots. Sun hours became a precious commodity. Entire economies revolved around who got the light and when. Sun lotteries emerged. Golden hour weddings became the new elite event. Poets returned with obnoxious metaphors. Influencers came out of hiding. And humanity, weirdly enough, started to heal. But behind the celebration, one question remained unanswered. Was this it? Was artificial sunlight the new norm? Or was it just a bandage over a cosmic wound we still didn't understand? In hidden labs, astronomers continued to scan the void, wondering if the real sun might one day reappear like an embarrassed cat. For now, though, we have built a replacement. Not perfect, not eternal, but ours. Humanity didn't wait for dawn. We manufactured it with nuclear fire, duct tape, and an astonishing ability to pretend we knew what we were doing. And maybe that was the most human thing of all. So there we were, basking in the manufactured rays of a fusion-powered disco orb floating above the Earth like a smug electric deity. And just when we thought things couldn't possibly get more complicated, humanity did what humanity always does. It monetized the light. Because if there's one thing people love more than warmth, it's control over warmth. And if there's one thing people love more than control, it's forming hierarchical power structures based on set control and giving themselves dramatic titles like Sunlord Supreme while wearing unnecessarily shiny robes. It started subtly, The Apol Light orbital fusion station could only shine light on select regions at a time, which meant someone had to decide who got how much sunlight and when. Enter the Solar Allocation Committee, or as it later came to be known, the Illuminati 2.0. In theory, this committee was supposed to be fair, democratic, and internationally representative. In practice, it was made up of the richest, most powerful bunker CEOs, ex-politicians, and at least one crypto baron who still insisted Candlecoin would bounce back. They didn't just decide where the light went, they sold it. Yes, sunlight became a commodity. Entire nations had to bid in weekly auctions for illumination slots, leading to the rise of phrases like light-rich economies, sunshine debt, and glowflation. Poorer regions were left in the dark, literally forced to continue relying on glow sticks, campfires, and motivational posters about resilience. Meanwhile, in the zones blessed by Megasun's gaze, a new elite emerged: the Sun Lords. These were regional governors appointed by the committee to manage the light zones. They wore robes made of reflective foil, carried ceremonial UV lamps, and held court in radiant halls lit by pure fusion. Their job? To safeguard the glow, which mostly involved making speeches about light purity and ordering light taxes from trembling villagers. Naturally, resistance formed almost immediately. A loose coalition of underground scientists, ex-hippies, and teenagers with too much time started calling themselves a Glow Common. They argued that light should be a basic human right, not a premium subscription service. Their motto? Let there be light for everyone, you greedy jerks. They hacked sunlight timetables, redistributed light energy, and once even projected the words, "the sun is for all," onto the Apol light itself using an orbital graffiti laser. Meanwhile, black market sunlight thrived. Rogue engineers built mini fusion lamps smuggled into dark zones under crates of canned beans and pirate podcasts. These were dangerous, unreliable, and prone to sudden detonation, but to some, they were worth the risk. Whole neighborhoods would gather for illegal sun raves in abandoned subway stations, dancing wildly under smuggled heat lamps until someone's eyebrows caught fire. And then came the great flicker. One day, for reasons unknown, the Apol light shut off for 13 seconds. Just 13 seconds. But in that brief moment, panic spread like a bad TikTok challenge. Markets crashed. People screamed. Sun Lords issued proclamations about the fragility of the light and demanded higher light tariffs to ensure future stability. Conspiracy theorists declared that the sun had hacked its replacement out of jealousy. And somewhere, a particularly dramatic poet wrote, "When the light blinked, so did hope." But the glitch revealed a terrifying truth. Humanity had built a world dependent on something it didn't fully understand and absolutely couldn't control. The Apol. Light, while brilliant, was aging. Maintenance was difficult, resources were thinning, and worse, whispers emerged that the fusion core was degrading faster than predicted. Some scientists warned that unless major repairs were made, which would require another massive launch, fresh materials, and coordination between multiple global factions, the artificial sun could fail permanently. Unfortunately, those warnings were ignored. Why? Because fixing the light meant giving up control, and those who had power, literal light power, weren't about to dim their glow. Instead, the Sun Lords doubled down. They formed a new institution, the Radiant Empire, a self-declared ruling body with its own flag, a blinding yellow circle in a field of blinding yellow, anthem, shine on, you fish in orb, and a governing principle known as the Golden Rule. Those who hold the light make the rules. And so, the world split again. Not along borders, languages, or ideologies, but along brightness. Glow zones grew rich, ostentatious, decadent. Dark zones grew bitter, hungry, inventive. The Glow Common began developing alternative light sources, bioluminescent bacteria, plasma torches, even genetically engineered glowing goats. Yes, goats. They were very proud of them. They called them gloats. Tension simmered. Sabotages increased. Light raids began where rebel teams would storm a sun station, hijack its controls, and redirect light to shadow communities, even if only for minutes. It was dangerous work. Many fried. Others vanished into the brightness. But each flicker of justice fueled the rebellion. Meanwhile, culture changed. Light tattoos became a thing, UV-sensitive inks that glowed only during exposure. Artists crafted entire installations out of laser beams and molten mirrors. New religions rose around the Apollo light, worshiping it as the neon eye, and preaching that its gaze cleansed the earth of sins and acne. On the flip side, a darkness cult called the Last Shadow promised salvation through complete lightlessness. Their initiation involved blindfolds, an interpretive dance in absolute pitch black. Through it all, the world spun on, half-lit, half-lost, stumbling forward on unstable orbits of light politics and thermoeconomics. Humanity, in its classic style, had turned survival into stratification. We had survived the sun's disappearance only to recreate the same systems of inequality, now draped in golden shimmer. But cracks were forming. Deep within the Apollite's fusion core, sensors began to fail. Strange data patterns emerged, flickers, pulses, a rhythm. One scientist, before being dismissed for heresy, insisted that the station was trying to communicate. With what? With whom? No one knew. But somewhere out there behind the artificial radiance, the mystery of the real sun remained unsolved, and it was getting restless. Somewhere in the cold archives of an abandoned space agency, deep beneath 12 layers of bureaucratic cobwebs, surrounded by lonely rovers and robotic arms playing solitaire, an alert blinked. Not just any alert. A signal, a pulse, rhythmic, structured, intentional. Like Morse code, but with cosmic sass. It had originated from the outer reaches of the solar system, somewhere far beyond the Kuiper Belt, where only bored comets and conspiracy theories roam. The message was short, but it rattled every scientist's last remaining nerve. Y'all miss me. The sun, our long-lost flaming overachiever, had apparently decided to check in. Now, before we get into why our favorite fusion ball sent a galactic you-up message, let's rewind. In the chaos of fusion-powered light shows and Sun Lord ego festivals, most forgot to ask, where did the actual sun go? Had it died? Teleported? Joined the band? Turns out it never left. Not really. It had shifted. Somehow, through mechanisms no physicists could agree on, but which philosophers gleefully labeled quantum emotional distance, the sun had phase shifted into a parallel dimension, specifically the one where everything is slightly toastier and everyone has better skin. There, it had been watching us, judging us, possibly facepalming. And now it wanted back in. The reason? Cosmic loneliness. Apparently, being a burning god star in an alternate reality is fun for about a millennia or two, but eventually even solar deities get tired of talking to themselves, and singing Rihanna's Shine Bright Like a Diamond on loop. It sent signals encoded in neutrino patterns wrapped in microwave giggles, warning us that it was coming back. The kicker? It wasn't coming back quietly. No, the sun had changed. It had upgraded, hardened. Think of it as the cosmic equivalent of returning from a yoga retreat with a six-pack, a philosophical manifesto, and slightly vengeful tendencies. Scientists argued whether this was a good thing. One side insisted that the sun returning meant warmth, light, balance, and potentially a new solar golden age. The other side pointed out that it might just incinerate everything in a petty attempt to reclaim its former monopoly on planetary relevance. Naturally, humans did what humans always do when faced with a possible apocalyptic return of an interdimensional flaming sphere. They panicked, created memes, and held emergency sessions of the United Federation of Light-Based Economies, UFLBE, which began with the solemn recitation of their motto, "In Glow We Trust." The Light Station's core, already shaky, began to receive distortions. Its fake sunshine trembled as it received what engineers now refer to as flare spam. Solar flares from the real sun bleeding into our dimension, frying systems, melting sunglasses, and tattooing the phrase, "Guess who's back?" into Australia's ionosphere. Religious leaders declared it the second coming of the soul. Cults sprouted overnight. One group began worshipping tanning beds as divine intermediaries. Another, the Radiant Reckoners, predicted that the artificial sun would be judged and smitten with great UV vengeance. Meanwhile, Sun Lords held a closed-door summit in the Crystal Pavilion of Perpetual Radiance. Their biggest concern wasn't the fate of humanity. It was branding. If the real sun returned, they'd be out of a job. Light would once again be free. Worse, ubiquitous. How do you charge people for something everyone already has? It would be like trying to sell water in a rainstorm. So, in an act of radiant desperation, they decided to sabotage the sun's re-entry. A plan was hatched. Launch Project Umbra, a massive space shield made of graphene, gold, and ego, designed to block the real sun's light and preserve their monopoly. The plan backfired, literally. As Project Umbra unfurled in orbit, a cosmic flare from the sun fried it like a cosmic marshmallow. Pieces rained down across the globe, one of which landed in a French cafe, where a barista promptly turned it into a very avant-garde espresso machine. The people, finally realizing that their artificial tyrants were trying to deny them natural light, revolted. Across the globe, citizens tore down fusion towers, dismantled glow tariffs, and danced wildly under the creeping rays of the returning sun glow. Common banners flew high, reading, "We don't need no glow control." Scientists, working feverishly, built resonance stabilizers to help our dimension accept the sun's return without, planetary combustion. It was touch and go. For a week, the Earth's atmosphere looked like a lava lamp having a nervous breakdown. But eventually the light settled. The sky turned blue again. Well, kind of teal at first, then cyan, then finally that familiar warm hue that says, "Hey, I'm the sky, and I'm feeling myself today." The ocean thawed. Plants exploded with enthusiasm. Gloats glowed brighter than ever. Humanity wept in sunlit fields, singing old pop songs and applying SPF 3000 just to be safe. As for the sun, it took its place back in the sky with the swagger of a rock star returning to a sold-out stadium. No more silent guardian. Now it hung, literally, broadcasting ambient frequencies that gave everyone mild tinnitus, but also made tomatoes taste better. It didn't say much. It didn't have to. Its presence said everything. I was gone. You built fake lights. You made yourselves gods. And now I'm back. You're welcome. Humanity, in a rare moment of collective humility, thanked it. We built a monument, not a temple, but a giant mirror angled toward the sky, reflecting its light back as if to say, "We see you. We remember." And beneath that mirror, the world began to heal, to grow, to burn a little less artificially. But peace? Oh, that's never guaranteed. Because if there's one thing the universe hates, it's letting anyone get too comfortable. And so, here we are. The final chapter in this absurd odyssey of light, loss, and ludicrous decision-making. The sun, yes, the sun, old Blaze, Phase himself, is back in the cosmic saddle, and humanity has survived its celestial timeout. But now, with the warm hum of our favorite thermonuclear ball restored to the sky and fake suns unplugged like disappointing lava lamps, the question echoing through sunlit alleyways and radiantly rekindled coffee shops is this: what now? Because let's be honest, Earth isn't great at learning lessons. We burn things, then act surprised by the smoke. We crown billionaires as light kings, then cry when they charge us $19.99 for basic warmth. But this time, maybe, just maybe, we're a little wiser. In the aftermath of Project Umbra's fiery faceplant and the dissolution of the Sunlord Syndicate, who now sell sunglasses on street corners and offer unsolicited vitamin D advice, global power structures began to reconfigure. Not just political, economic, but literal power structures. The artificial fusion cores, once worshipped like divine nightlights, were dismantled and repurposed into giant solar kettles, providing free tea and democracy. Glowtech, now bankrupt and ironically sunburned, was acquired by a cooperative called Soulmates. Yes, we know, but branding isn't their strength, and now distributes solar panels for hugs and decent jokes. With sunlight restored and the apolite era crumbled like a burnt-out LED bulb, Earth entered what historians would later call the Golden Age. Not golden, gloatin'. Everything was warmer, brighter, more photogenic. Climate scientists who had been frantically adapting models every 3 hours finally took naps, some for the first time in a decade. Social media, flooded with hashtag real sun selfies, briefly became tolerable again. And Earth, battered but unbroken, began to regrow. Grass poked through the scorched parking lots of former glow stations. Trees, defrosted and slightly offended, exploded with leaves like someone who just remembered they had an outfit for this occasion. Animals emerged, confused but fabulous. The penguins, now experienced politicians thanks to their leadership stint during the Great Freeze, held a press conference where they solemnly passed power back to humanity, and then walled off to star in their own Netflix documentary. But not everyone welcomed the return of sunshine with open arms. In the icy remnants of New Toronto, a radical faction calling themselves the Shadowlings vowed to bring back artificial darkness, arguing that the sun was an elitist gas ball with no respect for nocturnal communities. They were mostly ignored, though one of their leaders now runs a successful line of blackout curtains. Meanwhile, kids born during the blackout, nicknamed Glow Babies, began attending school for the first time under natural light. They asked hard questions like, why did grown-ups ban the sun? And is it true people used to pay taxes on light? And parents, sun-kissed and slightly embarrassed, could only sigh and say, yes, sweetie. But we were very silly then. As for the sun itself, it didn't stick around for thank you parades or commemorative stamps. It just was. It resumed its daily route like a bus driver who'd taken a very dramatic coffee break. It rose. It set. It warmed the oceans, fed the leaves, kissed the faces of street musicians and rooftop gardeners and weirdly passionate solar engineers who now had way too much time on their hands. It had changed, yes, but so had we. We no longer took its glow for granted. Morning routine shifted from checking fusion bills to basking for 10 minutes like lizards in spiritual therapy. Children were taught that no matter how clever we get, no matter how many artificial suns we build or monopolies we form, or cults we accidentally worship, nothing beats the original, the real sun roll. Raging, relentless, gloriously overdramatic. And as the first full year of the Golden Age came to a close, humanity celebrated not with fireworks or digital spectacles, but with a worldwide synchronized sunrise appreciation moment. At 6:42 a.m., everywhere, all at once, people stood still. On mountaintops, in villages, on broken escalators. Eyes to the east, smiles ready. And as the first golden rays spilled across the horizon like the universe pouring syrup on a cosmic pancake, Earth whispered together, "Thank you." Then immediately someone shouted, "Sun's out, buns out," and the party began. Because that's what we do. We survive. We forget. We panic. We meme. But sometimes, on rare occasions, we learn. And when we do, even stars pay attention. So if one day, in another epoch of cosmic tantrums, the sun ever disappears again, perhaps we won't try to replace it with glowing pyramids of capitalism. Perhaps we'll just wait. Patient. Hopeful. With some SPF and a backup plan. Because the sun isn't just a burning ball of hydrogen. It's a reminder that even in the coldest dark, warmth can return. That arrogance dims, but light endures. That we're all just sun-chasing organisms trying not to screw up too badly. And that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is also the one thing we can never own, sell, or reboot. It's just there, glowing, watching, slightly judging, forever. And with that, dear listeners, we come to the end of our ridiculous radiant tale. That's it from What If Horizons, where we imagine the impossible, exaggerate irresponsibly, and somehow still learn something in the process. If you enjoyed this glow-tastic journey, hit that subscribe button like it's a Rogue Fusion core. Leave a sunny review and share this with your friends who still think tanning beds are the future. Until next time, stay weird, stay curious, and for the love of photons, never mess with the sun.